So just going to have a very quick talk about Monterey pine and its reproductive cycle. So I have already done a very long video about this fantastic Monterey pine that unfortunately has recently fell due to heavy storms across Exeter. As I said, this is 23rd of February today. I'm assuming this happened a couple of days ago, but I'm not sure exactly when it fell. But for the moment, we're going to use this to our advantage to talk about the actual process of reproduction on a Monterey pine. So, pine trees are monoecious in nature, which means the male and female cones are on the same tree, but they're on different parts of the tree. There's also dioecious and hermaphrodite, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to focus on monoecious. So we're going to see that very clearly now. Now, we're very fortunate that despite this beautiful tree now being on the ground, it does allow me to actually examine the cones very closely. Now, normally when this would be in its upright position and very happy, you would see all the evergreen needles, and it's only at this time of the year, end of February to March, that's when it's doing its flowering season. Now, you'll also notice it's covered in these funny little yellow-orange groups of sausages, if you were to describe it that way. But actually, all of these are male cones. Their only job is to get pollen from here to the female cones. Now, you'll actually notice there's a lot of them. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, but there's a lot. And they outnumber the female cones greatly, probably 1,000 to 1, I'd guess. Now, the thing is with pine trees, the way they rely on moving the pollen, and don't forget the pollen has the genetic blueprints to build another tree, and it's got to pass that onto the female flower cone, and it does that by a wind. But this is a very risky game, a gamble almost, because you've got a short window of time. There's a lot of energy required in making cones or flowers, or you've got to make sure that you're doing it to obviously try to spread your family further. So when this happens, they will make lots of male cones, and these male cones, if we look here, they're yellow because pollen is typically yellow. And if you look closely here, if I just hold that, you can see all that. Now, unfortunately, if you've got hay fever, you're going to be affected. But to be honest, Monterey pine, this is when it's releasing its pollen. People typically get hay fever later on when you've got the grasses and sometimes poplars and other flowers and cones that release their pollen later. So I wouldn't imagine this is causing anyone any breathing difficulties now, but let's focus on the reproduction of the tree. So we just saw all that pollen, which I was just tapping, and you can see it all going into the air. It's got to, and these, again, pollen is tiny. There's trillions of pollen grains on this tree. It's got to get them from here, the male cones, onto the female cones. Now, this is actually the very tip of the tree, so I'm very lucky to be able to touch the tip of this Monterey pine. Now, you can see here there's a big difference in how they look. So these are like a very lovely rose red or deep red, and they're in typical groups of 4 to 7. So you can see on here as well. And it is as simple as that. The male pollen has got to get from here to here. And again, it's got to be the same species. So if male pollen from another pine tree hits here, nothing is going to happen. It's got to be of the same species. Now what will happen is these female cones, and these are, like I say, very young, when it starts happening they will then mature, and we're very lucky that we get to see this in action here. Sorry, I just got a mouthful of pollen there. These are the next stages. Again, this takes time. We're not talking like days, you know. Trees do things a lot slower than we do, and like I say, I'd need to find out how many months or years a cycle is, but this is the next part or next stage. You can easily see, because you can see again, it's sort of, those cones are almost around the various branches and stems, and then the next cycle or next year they get bigger. These beautiful cones, which are like an angle on the branches and the stems, and trust me, these are on tight and they're sharp, but that's not the mature. They've still got more time, so actually we'd need to go lower down, because again, this at the top part of the tree, that's where you sort of like, or the very tips of the branches, where the female cones will be. But the older mature ones sometimes will be on the actual central stem, and these are like, they're cemented on. But we're lucky that actually you can see there's some here, and there's even one on the ground there. There'll be at least 500 cones on here. But that's it. That is the reproductive cycle of a Monterey pine tree. And as I said, we've been very lucky that the way it's fallen, and that it's still here for me to actually research, and the time of the year. If it was a month later, the male cones would have all done their job and been on the ground. You wouldn't have seen all of this. So we've been very, very lucky to be able to see all the different stages of the flowering of this fantastic Monterey pine. So if I've missed anything, just let me know on my video. But as I said, I can't come back here because in a matter of days this is going to be cleared away. Like I said, this was just making an opportunity of something. As I said, I am deeply saddened by seeing this lovely tree go, but there's no point just walking away and doing nothing. Let's make good use of this tree, and in this situation it's going to be information, learning from the tree. So I hope you found this useful. I have. I've never got this close to a Monterey pine before. Beautiful tree. They get bigger, and they live like most pine trees do. For if they're left to, you know, actually grow old, they will get to a fairly good age. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It certainly opened my eyes, and also I've, you know, about the recent storm damage, it sort of like puts things into perspective that unfortunately at this time of the year, between January and March, in Exeter and Devon, and really the whole of the UK, that our trees really do struggle, you know. So I think we need to be doing everything we can to help support and look after our trees. In this situation, I don't think anyone could have predicted this. There is another mature Monterey pine just over the path there, and that seems to be fine. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I look forward to any feedback. Thanks a lot.